there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. After my last card where I used the little bees to create some stamps, I decided that I needed to use this cute little bee set and beehive set again. So I have die cut these out in two different colours, and for the minute I'm keeping all those little pieces in there, but I decided I actually didn't need to for what I was going to do. So I just had these with scraps of yellow cardstock, but I am going to use a little bit of Wild Honey Distress Oxide ink just to kind of darken up the edges a little bit and define them a little bit more against the background there. So I'm just using a finger dauber, which I get from Aliexpress, and if I zoom in here you can kind of see the difference that it makes. But one of my tips I have, this is a symmetrical beehive, so if you turn that top layer upside down, you can use it as a stencil to get those bits in the middle. And then once you've done it, you can turn it back around and no one will know the difference. So that is my little beehive. It's very simple. I'm just going to ink up the edges a tiny little bit, but not too much. And then I'm also going to ink up the wee door to the hive, the wee entrance to the hive, just to make it a little bit darker than the other stuff around it. Here is the foam tape from Aliexpress on Aliexpress. This is the 5mm one, I think, and nice and thin. It's very easy to cut in half, but it's a very sticky tape. It's kind of the perfect tape, actually. I'm loving using this at the moment, and that fits perfectly in between all the little gaps of my beehive. You certainly could skip the step. You don't have to add the foam tape to the back of the beehive, but I think the kind of 3D look it gives the beehive just brings it to life a little bit more and gives a little more interest. So yeah, you don't have to, but I think it looks kind of cool. So I have taken off the release paper and it sits on there nicely and it's well supported because of all that foam tape. And then the last thing I just need to do is, using a little bit of liquid glue, I'm just going to kind of put my wee door or entrance to the beehive in there. But I do have to kind of move it around using the sharp end of that tool. So that's fine to make sure that it's in place. I guess when I turned the beehive around and made it into a stencil, I could have just done it darker down there when I was doing that. But anyhow, all good. So now I have the same bee dies that I was using the other day in my last video, and I have die cut out some of the bees just out of some yellow cardstock and then some black cardstock, and the wings are out of vellum. So I'm just adhering these ones down flat. I'm not adding any foam tape. You certainly could, that would be fun too, but yeah, I was just doing these ones flat. And again, I'm just going to add the wings using the little bit of liquid glue because I don't mind being able to see that wee bit. I don't think it's noticeable enough. I don't usually do it on words or letters. That does bother me, but yeah, it doesn't bother me here for whatever reason. So now my idea for this card was I wanted to have the two little bees like carrying a sign or a sentiment hanging off them. And I did really struggle to find the right sentiment and the right sign, but in the end I ended up going with this Avery L set. And it just kind of has this nice banner and these curved words to it. So I'm going to take that main sentiment, which says happy birthday, but then I'm also going to take the you're the best sentiment out of the middle there, and that will be where I get my E's from. I am actually going to cover up most of the word birthday. I'm going to leave the B there, but I just wanted to say happy B at the moment. And I'm just using a little sticky note to do that, but you could use anything. And so I've stamped, it didn't actually stamp properly, so I took the risk of relining it up and it stamped perfectly the second time. And then, as I said, I'm going to get the you're the best. And the reason I use this one is because the E from your, as in you are, is right at the end of that word. So it's nice and easy for me to mask off and get the E. I could have definitely cut all my stamps apart, but I didn't feel like doing it with this set. So yeah, I'm just masking it each time. So I want to have 3 E's, so it's going to say Happy Bee Day, and obviously, well, I hope it's obvious that that is a play on the fact that there are little bees on the card, that it's a bee-themed card. So yeah, I'm going to have 3 little E's, so I just remask it every single time using the same ones, and it works out perfectly. And then I'm going to ink up the rest of the day from Happy Birthday, and that will be the end of my sentiment. Now, truth be told here, I do sometimes struggle when I'm filming because I don't get to look directly down on my stamping because of my filming equipment. So it doesn't always make it easy, and when I took the mask off here, it bothered me because the stamp was not centered. So I did end up restamping that and centering it up. Anyhow, this was the stencil I thought I was going to use because I had no hexagon kind of little stencils. And then I came across this one, which just has a little part of it that I kind of wanted, but I'm going to go between the mustard seed and the fossilized amber to stencil a little bit of this on my card. Now, again, I'm just using a little finger dauber, and I don't even think I end up barely re-inking these. Maybe I dip it in once or twice, but I just wanted a nice light background, nothing too intense. And then what I did decide to do is I decided to go around the corners of the card and kind of darken it up a little bit to give it some sort of a little bit of framing of the card, I guess. So there you can see I've definitely gone darker, and then I'm going to do the other corners. Yeah, and that way, as I said, it kind of feels like, yeah, you've framed the card without actually framing the card. So I'll do all the corners and down the sides a little bit with, I think this mainly has the wild honey colour on it from before, from when I was inking up the beehive. So yeah, that looks good to me. And then here is my re-stamped sentiment, and it's kind of time to start putting the card together. I originally thought that was how I was going to have it, but I ended up changing my mind. I am going to use my Pokey Tool to get 2 holes in each side of the sentiment. You may have a little mini hole punch that would be much better, but yep, I don't. So I just had a little piece of foam behind it and a nice sharp Pokey Tool. And then I'm just going to thread this little twine through each side of it. Now, I'm really sorry about the light here. I was filming this in the middle of the day and I was having heaps of trouble with the sunlight. So yeah, that's what that sunlight is, keep coming in. So I apologize about that. But anyway, I'm just going to stick these down using a little bit of double-sided tape and nothing fancy. And then I kind of changed my plan with where I wanted my sentiment to sit. So I want it in the same place, but I was going to have each bee carrying one end of the string, but I changed my plan, which you'll see in a second. I am going to add a little bit of that skinny foam tape again to the back of the sentiment so it stands up, and that way the twine will kind of sit nicely behind it. Inking up the edges again with that same finger dauber and just not re-inking. It's just a really nice little delicate yellow edging so that it kind of fits all in with the rest of the card. So then it's kind of time to put everything together, and I've just got everything sitting on my card for the moment, and I've put down my sentiment. I put it down wonky, so I'm going to adjust it. And at this point I changed my plan so that I was just going to have one of the bees holding it up, and I thought I was going to put the twine through here, but then when I started thinking about it, I was like, why would I put the twine through the card and make it hard on myself when the bee is going to be covering up all of that anyway? So you don't need to make a hole there. I've just put a little bit of double-sided tape which will hold the string in place until I add some glue and things, and then I'm going to put all this down before I put the final bits and pieces on, because sometimes I find that much easier to do it that way around. So I'm just adding some liquid glue and putting it onto a 110-pound Nina Solar White card base. Then I'm adding some little foam dots either side of where all that string will sit, so that the string can kind of sit in the middle of it nicely, and put one little bee up the top. And yeah, it's kind of meant to be like here's carrying the sentiment, so to speak. And then yeah, just adding the beehive with some liquid glue, and then deciding where I should put this little bee here, and adding a little bit of foam tape behind him to lift him up off the page too. So that was my card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining me again with these gorgeous little bees, and I will be there to see you on the next video. Bye!